Hello, good evening. Welcome to yet another exciting edition of our program, Business Today. My name is Uncommon Emmanuel, welcoming you to another round of conversations around business activities, government policies, as well as how individuals respond to these government policies. You're aware that as an individual or as a corporate organization, when you have funds and you want to invest, there are two possible ways you can invest your fund. You can either get into buying and selling, or you invest through the secondary market, or you invest through the stock market when it is for long-term investment. And for short-term investment, you can do that by getting goods and services, and you keep your business afloat. But when it's long-term investment, obviously you have to turn to the Nigeria stock market, which popularly known as the Nigerian Exchange Group. And a lot of people over time have wondered, what are some of the factors that influences investments, large scale, retail, or whatever scale you want to come into the stock market to invest? Investor sentiment obviously plays a very critical role when it comes to how money moves in and around the stock market, in and around the economy, and also the impact it is felt on the economy. Our conversation today will be looking at how this sentiment, investor sentiment, probably government sentiment, various sentiment, and how it influenced the Nigerian Exchange Group. That will be our first conversation today. Also, we'll be looking at some statistics that are currently making the rounds that says that for every 10 naira in Nigeria, 9 of such amounts is being hoarded or is in the hands of Nigerians, in spite of the gains that Nigeria has recorded in terms of fintech, also electronic transfers, banking, inclusion, exclusion, as the case may be. It seems that a lot of Nigerians still prefer to hold their cash with them. Her question and her conversation would also be, why do most Nigerians, or should I bring the conversation home, why do you like to hold cash instead of putting it in the bank? And also we'll look at the various factors from the government angles, from the individual angles, and also from the business viewpoint. So it's a very rich conversation we're going to be having today. What we ask is, give us your time guest this evening, a very astute lady, to be giving us more insight to this conversation. She's no other person than Adeyemi Okpeoluwa. Adeyemi, good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Let's look at various factors that drives investment when it comes to money moving around the nation and going into the stock markets, and the critical role it plays. Let's look at one of such key is investor sentiment, the sentiment of an investor. Our viewers want to know, what do you think is investor sentiment, and how does it attract or push cash, especially within any given economy?
Thank you for that fantastic question. As we all know that information is very powerful, so information plays a key role in the stock market. As an investor, you have to understand that information is what actually drives the market. But there are levels to this information, and this information actually, it affects investors in various ways. Now let's go back to what we mean by sentiment. Sentiment is actually refers to emotions of people, and how these emotions, how it affects their decision. Do you understand? So when you talk about investor sentiment, you're talking about how do investors feel, what's the rationale behind the decisions that they make in the stock market. Now this rationale, or this behavior, or this perception they have, they've actually cultivated these perceptions over time. Now you want to talk about what if actually influences this decision. A number of things, actually.
Before we look at and begin to itemize these things, because for me, I think I'm interested. I thought investors are rational, and as such, the issue of emotion, the issue of influence will not be there. As an accountant myself, as a chartered accountant myself, one who also had going for a PhD in accounting, we believe that, it is raw numbers,
yes,
or working with numbers, no emotion attached to it. But it seems you are bringing another side to the conversation to say how investors feel. Do we bring feeling into the stock market, or we work with raw facts that are available to us?
Thank you for that very intelligent question. Now, you want to understand that investors are of two types. Now, you have the primary investors, those ones who are actually behind the scene, that they are actually, they work with their employers or board of directors, you know. They are actually the rational ones. They are the ones who actually make sure that, oh, the company is doing fine, fantastic. Now, there are people like you and I who are retail investors.
Correct.
We don't participate in the day-to-day decision of the company. What we are basically working with is information that we have accumulated over time, basically from the environment, basically from technical analysis, basically from fundamentals. Do you understand? So this information is strictly what they have seen, perceived, understood by themselves. It has nothing to do with the books, if you ask me. It has nothing to do with the books. Majorly, now in our generation, when we talk about the contemporary times, you see that investors are more inclined socially, that there's this social bubble, you know, there's this hype, like they perceive stocks like, oh, what's the conversation like on the streets? Everybody's talking about this stock. Yes, so it doesn't concern them about the books. They are not interested in any way about what the balance sheet looks like. I understand the point you're coming from as an accountant, because I am also in that field. Do you understand? So that's the problem. Retail investors are moving the markets the way they believe, or what they have seen, or what they have heard.
Now, let's look at the concept of information asymmetry. You've talked about the fact that they don't care what the books, what the information about around that stock is. What they are after is the conversation, the emotion around
conversation,
around that particular stock, around that investment. We'll go to what the likes of Dangote is doing when it comes to building this conversation. But let's look at information asymmetry now. You know that those from the inside know more about the company, more
those
than,
are primary investors.
Yes, more than what they're actually giving us.
Yes.
Do you think when information asymmetry comes to play, it may sway a lot of persons who are not aware about the inner workings, rather than just working or investing based on hype?
Definitely. It has a major impact on these investors. Do you understand? Now, from the research I've done, a lot of retail investors do not even understand the technicality that goes into predicting and understanding stock as a whole. So we're only working with trends. Then you also want to talk about technicals, fundamentals over time, predictions. Now, a lot of people are working with predictions. I don't work with predictions. I work with patterns. So I want to look at, what does this book look like? What does this company look like?
History.
Yes, I want to look at the activities that this company has carried out over time. I'm not particularly concerned with the hype or the social conversations around it, because sometimes it can be very misleading. Correct. So you feel, oh, I'm buying this stock looks like it's going to do so well for me, but at the end of the day, the stock does not do well, because the company is not running on conversation. Money does not have emotion. Do you understand? The company is not running on emotion. The company is running on fundamentals. The book itself, the balance sheet, the profit margins, price indices. That is what the company is running on.
Now, let's come to Nigeria.
Yes.
Ever since the advent of Mr. President at the federal level, it seems, and also based on some of the reforms being put in place by Mr. President, we are aware that a lot of investor sentiment, the sentiment a lot of persons have about the Nigerian Exchange Group seems to be changing. The conversation about Nigeria Exchange Group is changing. Let's look at, to you as an investor and also a coach, let's look at the key factors that you think are driving this renewed confidence that a lot of Nigerians, not just Nigerians, because we're told of foreign direct investment coming into the stock market in billions of naira, in billions of dollars. Let's look at how renewed investor sentiment is actually benefiting the Nigerian Exchange Group.
Okay. That is another very wonderful question. Now, you want to look at government policies. How are these government policies, how are they changing the narratives? You see that this present administration is coming up with a lot of regulations, policies that actually support or that actually helps many industries. For instance, now, let's talk about the recapitalization policy of banks. Now, it's making banking and a banking sector look attractive to foreign investors, because now you're telling me that the recapitalization policy for banks that want to operate internationally is about 500 billion. Now, if I'm a foreign investor, I am actually looking at I'm going to be looking at that industry to think there's money here. Do you understand? So, if this kind of company has this kind of money tucked away somewhere, then it means that is not even the profit. Do you understand? That is not the profit. That is the money that CBN is mandating these banks to have. Now, let's look at telecommunication. You see a lot of regulatory policies coming up every day. What does these policies, how does it affect the industry, or how does it affect companies that operate in this industry? It gives them this kind of awareness. It helps investors to feel, oh, the government is involved. The government wants to see us make money. Therefore, the government is introducing policies that helps to protect us and protecting the industry. So it's a kind of win-win situation, if you ask me. So it further restores that confidence that we've lost before. So it further restores it, because now we want to track.
Talking about confidence being lost, we are aware that so many years ago, you were told that there are certain persons who made their millions, and then it was millions, and a bit of billions, as the case may be, from the stock markets. They invest, and every morning you see them with newspaper. They are looking at the various figures. At then we didn't have this electronic database. They were looking at the figures, and when it gets to a point, they sell. And we're told that a lot of persons from the western part of Nigeria, they overnight they build skyscrapers because they've turned the funds from the stock market to the real estate. But over time, we saw a lot of distrust, a lot of disinterest in the stock market. But for now, we are seeing a lot. Let's look at some of the figures, because as at year on year, as at 2015, we see Nigeria transaction grew by over 150% year on year, which amounted to over 2.404 trillion naira by February 2026. So as of February 2025, we saw over 115% growth in transaction in the Nigerian Exchange Group.
Yes, sir.
Let's look at how this figures, what is showing about the current state of the Nigeria capital market. What do you see? These figures, what are they telling us? As one person that read numbers and understand numbers, what does this figure show to us about the current state of the Nigeria stock market?
Now, these figures proves, first of all, that we are seeing massive growth. Do you understand? Then it also shows to us that the Nigerian stock market is about to enter into a realm of bullish opportunities coming up every day. Then you see dividends. You see companies coming up paying out dividends
a lot. Yes, a lot of companies.
Yes. Like I benefited from Zenith. I know a lot of people who actually benefited from Zenith. So what I'm trying to say is that confidence being restored is backed up by the fact that the Nigerian Stock Exchange Group is creating an opportunity for Nigerians to create wealth or to get wealth without necessarily needing to go the extra mile. Do you understand? So the only thing that we ought to do now is to understand how these trends are occurring, then follow suit.
And that's why consultant like yourself are to offer some of these understand. Do you think Nigerians are interested to even know what is driving this change? Do you think a lot of Nigerians are interested, especially retail investors?
Honestly, from my interaction with retail investors, a lot of them don't really understand the nitty-gritty of what the stock market is. So, and you know, stock market has its own lingua. So by the time you start explaining what it
vocabulary
is. Yeah, so they get lost along the line. So we are trying to find a way to make it as simple as possible for them to understand. But at the point where we are, the stock market is mostly thriving on hype right now. It's mostly thriving on hype because a lot of people are...
Are you saying we are not very strong? Because the figures there speaking to us, 115%, that does not speak of hype. That speaks of tangibility.
Yes. I mean, when you're talking about retail investors now, a lot of them are investing because they are now seeing the conversations that are surrounding these stocks, that surround the stock market. So they are investing, genuinely investing cash. Do you understand? So when you see the genuinity of these transactions, then you begin to understand that, yes, I think the Nigerians are beginning to come into a realm of understanding of what the stock market really is.
Fantastic. Let's look at these current figures, because for me, I think these are startling figures to show us that domestic investors currently amount to, in Nigeria stock market, we know we have the domestic, about the foreign investors,
yes.
But domestic investors currently amount to over 91% of the investment in the market. Let's look at the long term. Do you think that is healthy for Nigeria stock market in the long term, considering the fact that domestic investors, so if domestic investors amounting to 91%, it means that foreign investment amount, no matter how, amount to about 9%. Long term, now thinking long term, how healthy is it for the Nigerian stock market dominated by local investors?
The question we should be asking is, why is it dominated by local investors? If you as a citizen cannot invest in your own country, what's the point? So I think it's very healthy that people are now coming into the cognizance that Nigeria is has a thriving economy, no matter how much you want to talk about inflation. Do you understand? And another reason why a lot of these retail investors are also participating actively is because a lot of them are trying to beat the rate of inflation. You understand? So there are a lot of key factors that are coming into play. You get. So we know that the economy is thriving right now. So you as a person, you also have to guard up yourself. As an investor, you need to guard up yourself, and that's why you must cautiously invest. But on the other hand, also believe that the stock market is able to make, like you said, is able to make individuals millionaires. We have a lot of people who made millionaires last year and still counting. Do you understand? Even
and I think Nigerians are interested in that part. Millionaires. You
yes,
want to be a millionaire.
That's the conversation we are talking about. Imagine me coming to tell you that.
Do you want to be a millionaire? You say yes. The attention of that person, you grab the attention. Yes.
Exactly.
He's interested.
Okay, I got dividends from Zenith now. I go on my status and say, oh, I was paid so amount. You know, people are like, I'm interested. They don't really care about the books at that point. They don't really care how much, but they believe that there's money here. So that is what is driving local investors. That's why, yes, that's why it's bringing a lot of pay, and it is good for the economy because it means that money is circulating, is moving around. That's the essence of monetary policies, and that's the essence of relationship between buyers and sellers.
But in spite of that, we were still, in spite of these foreign participation amounting to that percent, we still see from us, from some of the statistics that are before me here, we still see that capital outflow from Nigeria still exceed the amount of funds currently circulating in the Nigerian Exchange group. So in spite of this 91% that we see here in Nigeria, retained in the country, moving around within the shores of Nigeria, is still the statistics showing that what leaves the country in terms of capital outflow is still more than what we're experiencing. And the question is, how do we stem that tide? How do we reduce more of this capital outflow? How do we trap this money here in Nigeria, in the economy, and also see how it benefits Nigerians?
Now, let's talk about manufacturing and exporting. If we begin to manufacture and export, it does a lot of things for the economy. It does a lot of things for investors. It improves the economy. Do you understand? It kinds of creates a leveling for exchange rates. The reason why it's like that is because the economy is kind of unstable. So foreign investors do not trust the economy that much. with the way rates are moving. Do you understand? So that alone is bringing that discrepancy. But if the government can take a step further to say, we're manufacturing this and we are exporting it instead of importing, we can see a balance.
All right. Once again, welcome. If you're just joining us, it's still Business Today, and we have been unpacking the Nigerian Exchange Group, and we're looking at how investor sentiment is shaping a lot of narratives that we are currently seeing in the Nigerian Exchange Group. And my guests have been Ifeoluwa, and she has been telling us a lot. That's what we're currently experiencing, a boom. The cash flowing within the Nigerian Exchange Group is as a result of the current conversation, government policies, and how that has been ensuring that a lot of capital flight, or the rate of capital flight, is reduced drastically. Now, let's look at some of this conversation now. Let's begin to look at the various sector in the Nigerian Exchange Group. Which sector, according to your understanding, do you think is doing a whole lot, is attracting more subscribers, attracting more investors into the Nigerian Exchange Group, sector by sector, sectorally?
Okay, if we're going to work with conversations, because conversation is one major thing that moves the stock market, we're going to be talking about the energy and oil. That's oil and gas. Now, with Seplat leading, then we have other oil and gas companies. You see the massive growth.
And to add to that, Seplat just got a new
yes, our Tony Elumelu. So you see, this conversation it's making, it's creating a lot of conversation. People are thinking, okay, so what's tomorrow going to look like? What's the stock market going to look like in the next 6 months? What's it going to look like in the next 9 months? And that's why we're here. And that's why we're here. And the more people ask questions, the more people seek knowledge about these things, the more you see people are trying to, they're trying to gather answers. So what happens? People go back. They go back to trends. They study what has happened over time. So, because sometimes you cannot talk about the future without making references to the past. So you begin to see the growth that has amounted, that has happened over time in the oil and gas sector. Another fantastic sector that I think is going to make tremendous wealth for Nigerians this year is banking. Do you understand? Banking, the recapitalization policy, very strategic if you ask me. Extremely strategic. Now, it's not only creating conversations for local investors. You see, foreign investors are also paying attention. They are looking at, okay, what's the plan? What's the game plan? Do you understand? Now, you also have inflation playing a role. Then you have the monetary policy.
Fiscal policy of government.
Of government actually still playing a very important role. Now, you see all those loan policy, all those lending policies that government has designed, it's actually playing a key role. Do you understand? So, is helping the banking industry to actually collect, attract as many investors as possible. Another key sector that I'm looking at right now is telecommunication. Now, why am I focused on telecommunication? I'm focused on telecommunication because with the advancement of technology, AI being introduced, you see that a lot of all these telecommunication are evolving. They are evolving from the normal 4G that me and you were so accustomed to. You now see them talking about 5G.
Well, a lot of persons have not even been included into the 4G platform.
Yeah, so you're talking about 5G. The conversation is different up there. Then you see that some of these telecommunications are also coming in partnership with companies like Starlink, with the introduction of D2C. So you're going to be seeing a lot of changes, yes, transformation. And innovation is one thing that actually attracts investors, because investors they don't just want to invest in a company that is not growing. They want to invest in a company that has the propensity to expand, to innovate. You understand? To bring in new ideas that can change the story. So you see all these three major industries that I've mentioned. I think every investor should look out for this industry. Then another one that I think is coming up gradually is the insurance industry. Insurance also now, because Nigerians are getting awareness. There are a lot of awareness is now coming into the conversation, into the social media space. People are now understanding the essence of the reason why they should invest, why they should insure their lives, their properties. So as a result of that, you see a lot of money are now moving into the companies. For example, like ICO now. I'm actually studying their trend, and over time I've seen that
these are the top 3 gainers.
Yes, ICO right now. So I'm actually looking at what is actually happening, and I realize that Nigerians are now understanding that there's a need for the insurance industry. And from my prediction, I'm looking at in the next 2 years, insurance companies would actually be trending side by side with the regular banks that you know.
Fantastic. We'll take a short time out. When we return, we'll anchor our conversation. We'll be looking at the role institutional investors will play going forward in terms of deepening the Nigerian Exchange Group. Sit back with us. The program continues after the short time out. Welcome back from that short time out. If you just joined us, it's still business today. I will be looking at the stock market and how investor sentiment is driving the current narrative that we're experiencing, with huge amount of money being traded year on year. We see trillions of naira being traded in the Nigerian Exchange Group, and it's making a lot of fun, especially for US. We're making a lot of Nigerians millionaires, as the case may be. And we have one of such, I don't know if she's a millionaire, but maybe before she goes, she will have to tell us about that. And also I'll ask her if she has been taxed accordingly, if she has paid that, her personal income tax or something. As the case may be, DMU Bolwa has been the one discussing with us. All right, then before we actually let you go, let's look at going forward. First-time investors, with all the things that you have said, a lot of conversation, a lot of hype. I also don't want you to hype first-time investors. So what would you say to first-time investors who are looking into the Nigerian Exchange Group, looking into the stock market? What would be your one advice? You're going to go straight to the camera, and you're going to address first-time investors, what they need to know, how they need to trade as they go into another space called the Nigerian Exchange Group.
For beginners, first-time investors, people who are trying to find their foot in the stock market. Now, the first thing that you need as a beginner investor is knowledge. It's not actually the money, it's actually the knowledge, because sometimes having the money but not having the knowledge can actually land you in big trouble. You may end up putting your money in a market or in a stock that is heading nowhere. So that's one. Then the second thing that you need to do is to have a brokerage firm. You cannot trade in the stock market without a brokerage firm, so you need a brokerage. So you can open a brokerage with any of this online, or you can actually visit your bank to assist you with that. Then the third thing that you need to do as a beginner investor who is trying to assess the stock market is understanding how diversification of portfolio works. Now, beginners will always say, I want volume. But for a beginner, I would always advise diversification of portfolio, because it helps to protect your capital, and it also helps you to manage risk appropriately. So these three advice I just gave to you are what I usually tell beginner investors who always come to me for advice. So I don't know if that answers your question,
sure.
sir.
I think that also goes out to newbies, those who want to venture into the investment subsector, investment sector for the first time. Knowledge. Once again, thank you, DMU Bolwa, for your thoughts tonight, and it's always a delight. It's an ongoing conversation. By the end of June, we'll begin to review the first 6 months and see how the stock market has actually fared in the first 6 months. Once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a short time out. When we return, our attention will be on the volume of cash that is out there in circulation. It seems there is breakdown of trust in the banking sector, with so much happening in the tech sector, with so much happening with fintech, and also the banking sector being revived, being strengthened. It seems that most Nigerians, you and I, still prefer to hold our cash within us than actually work with some of those things. We'll take a short time out. When we return, Mark Agodesi will be joining us virtually to unpack this conversation.